Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm going to be telling you everything I wish someone had told me before I got my first hamster. So without further ado, let's get into the video. So I got my first hamster about 2.5 years ago, and the first and biggest mistake that I made was that I purchased her from a chain pet store. I could make an entire video on why you should not purchase hamsters from pet stores, and I probably will in the future. But to summarize, basically, they come from very unsafe, inhumane conditions where they are just mass breeding them. Very similar to like puppy mills, there are hamster mills. So one, you are supporting hamster mills, and you are supporting that industry. And then two, they have terrible genetics, which leads to a variety of health conditions and inevitably shortens the hamster's lifespan. Some other great options would be to adopt a hamster. Now, this doesn't solve the issue of the genetics, but it does mean that you're not supporting the mass breeders. Or another great option, if you are worried about genetics and you want to have a hamster that's going to live a long time and also be friendlier, is to adopt from a reputable breeder. And also somewhat related to that is I would not recommend getting a female Syrian hamster for your first hamster. This is kind of ironic for me to say, considering that both of the hamsters I have been female Syrians, but female Syrian hamsters have a reputation for being more high-strung and being more demanding, and obviously this isn't going to be true for every female Syrian, but it definitely was the case with mine, my first hamster, and so I ended up being put on a pretty steep learning curve when I got her. Just because if she was not happy with something in her environment, she would show it, and she would be very adamant about it, and she would try to escape, and she would show boredom behaviors, and it just became very stressful for me because I wasn't completely sure what I was doing. So anyway, I would just say that for your first hamster, I would not recommend getting a female Syrian. Obviously, not every female Syrian is going to be like that, but they do usually need more enrichment, a larger cage, and just more things to do. I will say the same thing also applies to Roborovsky dwarf hamsters, where they also tend to be more high energy and need more space and some more species-specific care. So again, I would say for your first hamster, maybe steer clear of female Syrians and Roborovskys. Another very big mistake that I made, and a mistake that is easily avoidable, is to get the proper sized cage for your first cage. Do not get like a starter cage. We see a lot, especially in pet stores, where we see a lot of like starter cages, which are absolutely tiny, or in my case, I got a bin cage, which was too small. So if you weren't aware, the minimum cage size for a hamster is 775 square inches. So make sure the cage that you are getting is not below that. I know it can be tempting to be excited and want to get a hamster and say, oh, it's okay if I get, a smaller cage or something cheaper like a bin cage for right now, but it is really just going to save you so much time and money in the long run to just get the proper size cage and just get all of the proper things that you're going to need before you get your hamster. Because I got a bin cage that was too small, and as I said, combined with my female Syrian, who made it very clear that the cage was too small, I ended up upgrading 2 times. I upgraded to a larger bin cage, and when that was still too small for her, I upgraded to my current cage, which is a 75-gallon tank. And I could have just saved a lot of time and energy and stress if I had just purchased a 75-gallon tank to begin with and not tried to go cheaper and smaller. And that brings me to my next point, which is hamsters are expensive. Obviously, there are ways you can save money. I have made a video on this before if you want to check out how to own a hamster on a budget. However, at the end of the day, hamsters cost money, just like any other pet. Even though they may only be $25 at the pet store, and you may, see them as little creatures that only live like a year or two, they still are going to cost money. Their food is expensive, their bedding is expensive, all their accessories are expensive. And again, there are ways to save money. There's a lot of fun DIYs you can do with hamsters, but at the end of the day, they still do cost money, and that is something you need to keep in mind. And another thing that will cost you money is vet bills. So it's another misconception that hamsters don't need to go to the vet. This is not true. This was something that I was kind of like, okay, my hamster might need to go to the vet, but probably not. And then I ended up having to take her to the vet multiple times during her life. So expect that you will have to take your hamster to the vet at some point in life and plan for this ahead of time. So find a local exotic vet, not a cat or dog vet, in your area that you know, okay, once I get my hamster, if anything goes wrong, I can take them to this vet and I don't have to worry about that in the moment. Another good thing to know is that not every hamster is going to be super friendly, and it will also take your hamster some time to warm up to you. I've gotten lucky where both of my hamsters have been super outgoing and friendly, but every hamster has their own unique personality. That's part of what makes owning them so fun. And some hamsters are what you call ghost hamsters, which is where they do not like human interaction whatsoever. If you do really want a hamster and you want a friendly one, your best bet would be to go with a reputable breeder because, again, these hamsters are bred with proper genetics, which can also help them have proper temperament, and the breeders are going to know the personality of every single one of their hamsters so that you can make sure you're getting a hamster that is the right fit for you. All right, and that brings us to my last piece of advice, and that is that the hamster community is super welcoming, but it can also be very isolating and overwhelming. So I definitely discovered this when I started posting on YouTube. The hamster community on here is amazing, but we do have a tendency to attack anyone that is seen as doing something wrong. There are some pieces of conflicting information. You'll hear one thing from somebody and then something totally different from somebody else. So that can be overwhelming. And again, a lot of people tend to get very passionate about proper hamster care, which is great, but sometimes people can take it over the top and get aggressive about it. So that's just something to keep in mind while you're doing research, is that you will probably hear some pieces of conflicting information. Maybe it can be a little bit confusing, a little overwhelming. There is a lot of information out there, but don't be discouraged. And at the end of the day, what is most important is just to listen to your particular hamster, because as I said, every hamster is different, every hamster is unique, they all have different needs. Some hamsters might thrive in a cage that's the minimum size, some hamsters might need 1,500 square inches in order to live happily. Some hamsters might be okay with more fresh foods in their diet, or some might need their fresh foods restricted. There's just a wide variety of hamsters, and their personalities are very different. So just make sure your hamster is happy, and that is what is most important. So that concludes everything that I wish I knew before I got my first hamster. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you are getting your first hamster soon. I would love to hear all about it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!